Half of Perek Yud Aleph, the 11th chapter of Mishlei. Pasuk Yud Zayin. Very important pasuk. Gomel nafsho ish chased ve'ocher she'ero achzari. One who is merciful does good to his own soul, but he who is cruel troubles his own flesh. That's the basic translation. There's something good that a person does to himself, but he can do himself a lot of harm too. Various interpretations here. What does it mean one is merciful to himself? Rabbis tell us that there are a lot of people who are kind to others, but are not kind to their own family members. One's own family comes first. One's own brothers and sisters, if they need charity, they come first before anybody else. A lot of people spend a lot of time and money helping out others, and that is admirable. But the home comes first. As the famous saying in English, charity begins at home. That saying, I think, has two meanings. Charity begins at home. That is where one picks it up. I think that's what was meant. That's where one learns it. And charity begins at home, meaning the home comes first. One's home needs help, whether it's help with the children, the wife needs help. And that is why many rabbis say that chesed amiti, true kindness, can only be tested when a husband is kind to his wife. A husband may be kind, a man can be kind to many people, but if he's truly kind or not, you can only test it in his relationship with his spouse. The other way around too, the wife with the husband. There are a lot of women who are tzadkaniot, they're very righteous. They help out a lot of widows and orphans, but they don't help out in the house. That's also no good. So charity begins at home. That is the true chesed, where one does charity with his own family members. As you know, the stories with the rich uncle, the famous stories that this man has a rich uncle and he's in desperate need, and his uncle does not help him out. There are stories like that where people could really help out a great deal to their own family members, to their own relatives, and they come first according to the halacha dealing with tzedakah. Your family comes first before anybody else, then those that live in your community, in your city, before other communities in the country. So gomel nafsho ish chased, one who does chesed with himself, that is true mercy, that is true rahmanut, much more than one who does it with others. Another idea that is expressed over here is that we're talking about health. Gomel nafsho, one who does kindness with his own soul. In other words, he eats properly, he takes care of his health. Why is that so important? Because if one is concerned about his health, he feeds himself well, he will be understanding when others don't have the food. There's a story of a rabbi who went collecting funds for his yeshiva. In that yeshiva there was a dormitory. The kids, the bachurim attending the yeshiva needed to be fed 3 meals a day. And this wealthy man asks the rabbi, what do you need so much money for? All I eat is a little bit of sardines and matzah, and I'm sure those bachurei yeshiva could live, by giving them a very simple meal. They'll survive. So the rabbi tells him, you're a wealthy man, you should be eating steak every night. You should be having a good meal. Why is that, Rabbi? Because if you eat well, then it would be easier for you to give to others, so they should also have what to eat. If you are just eating the bare minimum, you will not understand the needs of others. So you should eat well. In other words, if we take care of ourselves, this will allow us to have a little bit more sensitivity to others. But if we say that we don't need anything, that's very nice. But if the problem with that is that one may look down at others who do need the bare minimum. Another idea that is expressed in this pasuk is gomel nafsho ish chased, one has to take care of his own body. And what that means is that the Torah already gave us enough prohibitions, enough things that we need to take upon ourselves, commit ourselves. And one who adds additional prohibitions or limitations, he's making his life more difficult and more miserable. And there's not only is there no mitzvah to do so, to make it more difficult, it's a sur, a nazir, who appears to be doing something very lofty by abstaining from wine for a whole month. The Torah says he would have to bring a sacrifice at the end of this very lofty deed. Even though it was good, even though he meant well, it's a form of discipline, and in the big picture it is a good thing to do, to abstain temporarily. Nevertheless, you would have to bring a sacrifice, because why are you taking upon yourself something which the Torah permits, drinking wine? Why are you prohibiting more prohibitions on yourself, more than what the Torah has said that you should take upon yourself? You're making life more difficult for yourself. There's no mitzvah. Of course, discipline is important if one wants to have a certain control. That is fine, as long as he does not hold himself back completely. One does not have to overindulge. So discipline and controls are good, are welcome. But to prohibit or to abstain completely, to become a vegetarian, is not necessarily something that is admirable in Judaism. On Shabbat and Yom Tov, there is an important idea of eating meat. You don't want to eat meat a whole week, because for whatever reason, for health reasons, that's okay, but at least on Shabbat and Yom Tov. So even if one wants to take upon himself certain restrictions, he can't be a fanatic. He can't be an extremist all the way. It is possible to do both, is to limit yourself, nevertheless, not to go against the spirit of what the Torah is trying to do. There's enough mitzvot in the Torah. There's no reason why we should take upon ourselves more limitations. The next pasuk, Rasha oseh peulat shaker v'zorea tzedakah secher emet. The wicked works a deceitful deed, but to him who sows righteousness shall be a sure reward. I'm just going to translate it with my words. A wicked man may mislead himself by doing certain acts that mislead him. They're false. And only the one who sows or plants charity or righteousness will receive reward. What does that mean? A Rasha, many times he thinks that what he's about to do or what he's been doing is good, it works for him, even though it's wrong. He's being misled because he sees that his pe'ulot, his deeds, his actions, are bearing fruit. The typical example that I love to use for this is Shabbat. People tell me, Rabbi, Shabbat is my best day. I can show you the cash that comes in on that day. All the customers come on that day. And he can show it, he can prove it. You look at every day, he doesn't make as much on Monday or Tuesday. He makes more money on Shabbat. But that's all peulat sheker, that's misleading. Because he doesn't realize that any money that was made in Shabbat has no blessing. And a few months down the road, he's going to have to pay attorney fees. He's going to have 3 root canals. His wife may be involved in an accident. His water main may rupture. Right? He will have 3 flat tires, not 1. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, his neighbor will decide to sue him for something. Everything at once. All the money that he thought he made eventually will disappear. It's like a water pipe that's dripping. There's a leak. I mean, the water is just, you don't see it. You're still getting water from the faucet. You open the faucet, you're getting water into your sink, into your bathtub. It's only once you go into the basement or once you check your water bill once a month that you wonder what's going on. Otherwise, how do you tell? How do you know? So the Rasha is being misled because he opens the faucet and he's getting water. No, look at your bill. Look at the bottom line at the end of the year. And if one would be honest with himself, if one would really analyze his finances, and most people do not do it that carefully, they would see that all the money from Shabbat that they thought they made went away. There's no beracha, so why work on Shabbat? Not only is it forbidden, but there's no blessing. But the Rasha, the one who is wicked, who does not think right, he's being misled by his actions. The one who plants or sows righteousness, he will actually receive reward for his actions. Tzedakah, even though that money disappears, as we said I think a week or 2 ago, the money is gone, he's given it away. That does bring one reward. Because even though the money is gone, he's given it away for charity, that is in fact a good investment. Because for that there will be a reward. Even though we don't see the reward immediately, our tradition says that for every penny that we give away, we will receive more and more and more. Not only will the money that has gone away come back, but we will be blessed with more. So he who plants tzedakah secher emet, that is a true reward. Next pasuk, ken tzedakah lechayim umeradef ra'a lemoto. Here he translates it he who is firm in righteousness will live, so he who pursues evil comes to his own death. Alright. Ken tzedakah lechayim. We'll try to explain it a little bit differently. One who is righteous, one who has midot tovot, one who has good character, all this kind of behavior leads to life. Life, when we say life, we don't necessarily mean the eternity, which is what the rabbis say sometimes the word life means, an eternal life. It also means in olam hazeh. One who conducts himself properly, he has a much better life. All around people will like him, people will get along with him. He just enjoys life much more. He will have life in olam hazeh. Tzedakah lechayim, the tzedakah. So we said that good nature, good character gives one life in this world, and the opposite, miradef ra'ah lemoto, those who pursue evil ways, they don't have a life. Those evil ways lead them to death. Rabbi tells that reshaim are even dead while they're alive. They don't really have a life. They think they have a life, but that's not a quality life. To'avat Adonai ikeshe lev uretzonot temimei darech. Those who are of perverse heart are an abomination to Hashem. Hashem does not tolerate, does not like those who have a perverse heart. Uretzonot temimei darech, but those who are upright in their way are His delight. Here we're talking about individuals who have a perverse heart. What's a perverse heart? It's interesting, in every generation, in every community, every place, nothing has changed. There are people who think in a perverted way. An example of a perverted heart is one who tries to take advantage of people. Menatzelotam, as we call it in Hebrew. All he has in his mind or in his heart are his own interests. Like President de Gaulle of France used to say, nations don't have friends, they have interests. Everything is interests. Well, here we're not talking about nations, we're talking about individuals who really, they don't think about what benefit will this bring the individual, just they're only thinking about themselves. That's a perverted heart. Perverted, crooked. It's not normal. Doesn't think or feel the way he should feel. Tries to take advantage of people, and he believes that what he's doing is right, that there's nothing wrong with what he's doing. People who are not honest, who cheat people, who overcharge them, all of this is for personal gain. That's all. These are all examples of a perverted heart. So he says, To'avat Hashem. Hashem hates these people. What does Hashem like? Uretzonot temimei darech, those who are sincere, those who are upright. The word tamim means complete. One can be complete in his emunah at all times, even during difficult times. One is observant. There are those, unfortunately, who when life begins to be a little bit hard, they start fulfilling mitzvot. They think God has abandoned them. That's it. He's no longer around. They're upset at Him. Tmimut means to be complete in one's faith at all times, even if things are difficult. We don't understand what is going on in Israel today. We're hopeful until the last minute that those plans to uproot people, even though it has begun, it will not go through completely. There's always a chance that things will stop at some point. However, if they don't, if things begin to be very, very dismal, very, very bad, we're still supposed to believe that there's some good in everything that happens, and Hashem definitely has a good plan, especially in our generation when we are just a few steps away from Mashiach. This is definitely leading to that one way or another. One way or another it's going to lead to that. So we have to show tmimut in our emunah. We have to show that we are complete, that we don't waver in our emunah. So in the same way that people have a chance to sometimes waver or not, halila, in their emunah, the same is true with their midot. A person can be tempted at times to not be honest, to do things that are wrong. Those who are tmimei darech are always complete. They're complete in their midot, in their character, in their nature. They never lie. It's not like some people that say, okay, it's okay for me to lie in this situation. The guy is not Jewish. Chaz v'shalom. Lying is asur. It's not acceptable under any circumstances, with very few exceptions. Very few exceptions. One of them is to tell your wife she's the most beautiful woman in the world. Even though that may not be 100% accurate, it is the right thing to do. It brings peace. It stimulates their relationship. And I think most women like to hear that. So, it doesn't cost anything. The compliment is very cheap. As long as you mean it a little bit, then it's fine. So there are very few exceptions. One should always be tamim in his midot and in his emunah, and not have a perverted heart and think only of himself. Next pasuk, yad leyad lo yinakeh. Yad leyad lo yinakeh ra v'zera tzadikim nimlat. Here he translated, those who join hands for wicked ends shall not go unpunished, but the seed of the righteous shall be saved. The commentaries say, yad liyad, meaning from the hand of Hashem to his hand. One who is involved in doing something evil will not escape punishment, but the children, the seed of tzaddikim, will escape. And this is a very interesting point, that even though he says it throughout the Sefer Mishlei, that those who are wicked, those who engage in evil acts, will not get away with it. Here it means something else. Some of the commentaries say it's talking about specifically one who hits another one, who raises his hand to hit someone, that he will not escape punishment in this world, because most punishment is reserved for Olam Haba, in the next world, in the afterlife. But there are certain things that are paid, that one has to pay in this world, and one of them is if somebody raises his hand against someone else. That's just one idea here. The point here is, however, that one will not get away with it. Sometimes, however, people get away with it. And what's the explanation for that? So that's the second half of the pasuk. V'zera tzadikim nimlat, the seed of the righteous will escape. It is very possible that this man, who is a crook, he's evil, he conducts himself in a not honest way, he appears to be getting away with it because he's the seed of a tzaddik. And there's something called zechut avot, merit of one's father. That can protect one in this world. Eventually, he's going to have to pay for it. But it could be for the next 50, 60 years of his life, he will have a normal life, and it will not be apparent that he is suffering as a result of his actions. An example of a child being saved as a result of the merits of his father is a famous story in the Gemara of Nehunya. There was a man, Nehunya, who used to dig wells for all those who used to go Aliyah la Regel, used to go up to the Yerushalayim 3 times a year. It was a long road, it was a long trip, and he would dig wells of water so they should have beautiful mitzvah. So people should have what to drink, their animals. And once one of his daughters fell into one of those either into one of those wells or into a big pit. And everybody was concerned about her because she may easily drown. There was water there. They thought that she may have died. So they immediately ran to a big tzaddik, and I think it was Rabbi Nehonya ben Akaneh or Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, and they asked him, what's going to be? He says, she's in peace, she's okay. But she hasn't come out. They went again and asked him, she's fine. The third time they came to the rabbi to seek his prayers, he said, don't worry about it, she's already out of it. She already came out. And they went to see, and sure enough, she's out. And they asked her, who got you out of it? It was a very deep well. She said, Abraham Avinu. Abraham Avinu came and took me out of here. So they went over to the rabbi and they said, Rabbi, you have Ruach HaKodesh, you're a prophet. How did you know that she came out? So he says, I was convinced that the father, her father, as a result of him making the wells for the Oleh Regel, after doing so much good for people, it is impossible that through the same act of mitzvah, digging a well, in the same exact thing, his daughter, his child should fall and get killed in the same mitzvah that he's doing. It's impossible. I was convinced that she would come out. Hashem would not allow a tzaddik to suffer a tragedy like this through his own mitzvot. It just didn't make sense. And that was a zechut that his daughter had, the zechut of her father. It could be that according to her mazal, perhaps something would have happened to her. But her father's zechut protected her. Yes? Oh, sure. Sometimes these zechuyot last for many generations. The zechuyot of the grandparents too. Next pasuk, Nezem Zahav Ve'af Chazir, very famous pasuk.
work the other way?
That what?
Does it work the other way? If your father is a rogue,
No, it works like this. If the father was evil, the child will not suffer the child will not suffer his father's punishment unless the child conducts himself in the same way as the father. Then they give him double. They give him for what he's doing and for what his father did. So Hashem does carry over only in condition if the child is the same like the father. But if the child is a good man, he will not suffer for his father's act.
The opposite, I mean, the son of a righteous person would be more likely to be righteous, whereas the son of a Rasha would be harder for the son of a Rasha to be righteous.
That's true, and they take that into consideration.
So why
They take that into consideration.
why would the son of a Rasha be punished? If he's evil, he's punished.
Very good question. Why should he? Well, what's the purpose of it? One explanation is Hashem does everything for the good of the individual. Even punishment is a kapara, is an atonement. When a child is receiving a portion of his father's punishment, is to hopefully get the child to let go of these ways. So Hashem has to intensify sometimes the punishment to rid this child of that which his father had. If not, it's going to go on for more generations. So in the end, there is definitely a good idea here. Yeah. Yeah.
Can a child be such a tzaddik that somehow that rubs off, even if the parents are...
What rubbed off? What rubs off? If he's a...
So that they wouldn't... It's in reverse.
If the child is a tzaddik,
Yeah.
and the father is not,
Correct.
then what happens?
Or the siblings are not, or the parents are not.
So what are you saying, that it should rub off the other way around, that it should help the father?
Yes.
Of course, we know that. It always does, but only in the afterlife. In other words, once the father has left the world, yeah. Once the father has left the world, then the child that remains here can do some help to the parent. Sure. That, yeah, but while the father's alive, he has free will. He's on his own.
So Rabbi, why is Poked Avon Avot al Banim al Rebaim?
That's what I just mentioned. Poked Avon Avot al Banim al Shilashim al Ribaim only kshe'ochazim b'maaseh avotam. Hashem brings upon the children and grandchildren the sin of the grandparents on condition that they are continuing to hold on to those grandparents' maasim. But otherwise, he would not bring it on them. So the commentaries emphasize only on condition that they continue in the same way. Yeah. All right. The next pasuk is an important pasuk. Nezem zahav be'af chazir, isha yafa v'sara ta'am. Here he translates as a jewel of gold in a swine's snout. I prefer simple English. Nezem zahav means, Nezem is the name of a piece of jewelry that they used to put on the nose. Some, women used to use jewelry, that they would put, that's called nezem. So he says here, a golden nezem, a golden piece of jewelry in the snout of a pig, of a swine. That's what you can compare to one who, here he says a pretty woman who lacks discretion. In other words, here you have something that is beautiful. It's a piece of gold. It's a golden piece of jewelry, something nice. But where is it? It's in the nose, in the snout of a hazir. What's going to happen eventually to this beautiful takhshit? It's going to go in the mud. It's going to get dirty too. But forget about that. The fact that it's in the snout of a hazir does not make sense. In other words, it does not go along. It's a contradiction. The same is true with a woman who's beautiful, but she's saratam. In other words, she is not discreet. She's not modest. And what is he trying to point out over here? That you have sometimes something that is beautiful on the outside, but is rotten from the inside. What that means is that don't look at the kankan like the rabbis tell us. Look at what's inside. Don't look at what's on the surface. Why? Because if all you have is something beautiful on the surface, it's meaningless. If the whole essence is no good, beauty on the surface is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. It's just like a nezem zahav, a golden piece of jewelry in the snout of a pig. Where does this apply? It applies to individuals who have learned Torah, who have become Talmidei Chachamim perhaps, and who have terrible midot, terrible behavior, character. They're not, as we say in Yiddish, they're not a mensch. They don't behave themselves. So what if they know a lot? All the Torah is a beautiful nezem zahav, but where is it sitting? It's sitting on the nose of a pig. Right? And there are people who behave like pigs. So that's what he's saying. Nezem zahav, it would be a shame for all this beautiful jewelry to be in the wrong place and to get dirty. And this is what Hashem told Shemuel HaNavi when he went looking for a new king. If you know the story, after Shaul HaMelech, the first king, was fired from his job, Hashem sends Shemuel to the family of Yishai. The king, the next king is there. And Yishai has several children. Shemuel arrives at the home of Yishai and he is very impressed by one of the kids, Eliav, handsome and tall. And Hashem tells him, don't look, don't look at his face, don't look at his height. I don't want him. He's not the one. You're being misled by looking at the height and the beauty. And then he says, people make a mistake because they look with their human eyes. Hashem sees the heart. And Hashem cares about the heart. And therefore, Shemuel was told, this is not the one. And he went through boy after boy until there was no more children around the house. He says, that's it? All of these children? Hashem doesn't want any of this. You must have one more. He says, yeah, I have one more. He's out there in the field. He's a young shepherd. Can you call him? He's young. Yeah, but he's young. He's small. Call him anyway. And sure enough, that was David HaMelech. That was the one that Hashem chose. He's the one. And you couldn't tell. Young boy, nothing special about him. But Hashem knows what's going on in their heart. And sometimes we don't know. So we judge by the outside appearances. And that's very misleading. A person can have beauty. They can be handsome. And it's all misleading. So what is he saying here? It's important to be complete. It's good if someone is beautiful, but they should be beautiful inside as well. If the beauty is just on the outside, it's meaningless. The next pasuk, Ta'avat tzadikim machtov, tikvat reshaim evra. The desire of the righteous is only good, but the expectation of the wicked is wrath. Ta'avat tzadikim, the desire of tzadikim, what is it that they want to do? A tzaddik wants to do Hashem's will. A tzaddik always wants to do the right thing. A tzaddik always wants to do everything la tachlit, for the real purpose. And therefore, as the rabbis tell us, even when we go to sleep, we should have in mind that we're going to sleep not just to rest, not just to enjoy the bed, but to regain our strength so the next morning we can rise and serve Hashem with strength. Why do we? So we should be healthy to serve Hashem. In other words, the tzaddikim have the right ideas even when they're doing something that is mundane, something which is earthly and material. We're not even talking about that which is spiritual, the mitzvot and the learning of Torah. Even that which is mundane. They go to sleep, they eat, they talk. They only talk things that are worthy of being said. That is the meaning of Ta'avat Tzadikim, only to do that which is right. Whereas the Rasha, all he has in mind is his own personal gain, his own interests. And that all leads to Evra. Evra means wrath. Nothing good can come out of it, because all he thinks is of himself. Another idea that is expressed over here, Ta'avat Tzadikim Achtov, is that the tzaddik does not do things in anticipation of a reward, as we learn in Pirkei Avot, that we should not do things, preferably not do it in anticipation of being rewarded in the afterlife. A tzaddik does it because it's the right thing to do, whereas the Rasha only does things. But it's important to point them out, because people sometimes don't realize that they fit into one of the other category. You know, one may do things for his own personal gain, and therefore there's something for him to learn here. That's not the right attitude that the one should have. Next pasuk, Yesh mefazer v'nosaf od v'chosech miyosher ach lemachsor. There's one who gives freely, yet his income will increase. Another one withholds what he should give and comes out wanting. Now this is interesting, because one thinks that if he gives charity, he's becoming poorer. He has less money. What this pasuk says, no. He who gives, mefazer, he scatters, v'nosaf, he will have more. His wealth will be increased. And on the contrary, he who holds back will be lacking. How does that work? So the rabbis give us a beautiful mashal of a baby that is sucking from his mother, nursing. Now, I guess women know that as long as the baby takes from the mother, she will have, hopefully, milk. If the baby lets go for a couple of days, the milk dries out. Isn't that right? That's the way it works. That's what I remember. So it's important for the woman to continue to nurse. And if the baby is not hungry, well, guess what? You express and you put away if you need to. Otherwise, the milk will dry out. The same thing with the tzedakah. When one gives and gives and gives, there will always be a supply. It will never dry up. If one holds back, does not give, it can dry up. The well can dry up. And there's a famous story in the Midrash with maaser. Maaser means giving 10%. 10% is a beautiful thing. It's a great mitzvah, and it's the best way to preserve one's wealth. There was a story in the Midrash of a father right before he passed away telling his son, let me tell you something about this field, that I've been very blessed. This field gives 100, let's say 100 bushels of wheat a year. I always gave maaser, and therefore I was always able to have 100 bushels. Even if there was not that much rain, I always had. And the secret to my prosperity was that I always gave 10% of my profits to tzedakah, maaser. If you want to continue succeeding in the field, to have a good year, just remember, you continue to give maaser. The son was not too bright, apparently. He thought he can get away with it. He says, what's the big deal if I don't give? I'll give a little bit less. I won't give 10%. I'm going to give 9% or 8%. The following year, he had a little bit less. And he continued to give less and less every year, and as he decreased his tzedakah, the yevul, the crop, was less and less and less. It became so bad that after a couple years, what he received from that field was the exact amount his father used to give away for tzedakah. In other words, instead of him giving away 10%, all he was left with was with 10%. So his relatives heard about his problem. They came dressed up with their clothes of Shabbat, and they came to visit him. So he says, what are you coming to make fun of me? You're all dressed up. What's the idea of being dressed up? He says, we came to see you in our best clothes because you have become the Kohen. What do you mean have become the Kohen? He says, yes, it used to be before you would give away the maaser. Now you receive the maaser. Now you've remained with the 10%. In other words, they were not really making fun of him, but they were basically rebuking him. Look what you have done. Your father told you, if you will continue to give the 10%, everything will be fine. But you chose not to. Little by little, the field decreased, the amount it grows, and you've become the Kohen now. You receive now the 10%. And that's what Shlomo Melech is telling us. One who gives tzedakah has nothing to fear. On the contrary, that will preserve his wealth. Maaser will increase his wealth. And the other way around, if he holds it back, he will lose out. Next pasuk, nefesh beracha tedushan umarve gam hu yoreh. Calls it the liberal soul shall be made rich, and he who waters shall be himself watered. What it basically means is a soul who blesses others, who's kind to others, he himself will be blessed. This is a famous expression the rabbis tell us of b'midah shadam moded modedim lo. In the way one handles himself with others, in the same way, in the same measure, min hashamayim, they will deal with him. He's kind unto others, he helps others, then he himself will be blessed. Midah keneged midah. This is the opposite of one who is jealous of others. One who, the reason why he's called nefesh beracha here, a blessed soul, is because he actually is happy when others do well, when others succeed. There are some who cannot, as we say it in Hebrew and in Yiddish, im lo yocholim lefargen. I don't know if there's any such word in English. They're simply unhappy when somebody else is doing very well. It bothers them. That's not jealousy. Jealousy means you want to have what the other person has. Then you have something called ayn ra or tsar ayn, a narrow eye. You cannot take it when somebody else is doing well. He would like that person not to have that latest new car, even though he has it himself. He cannot tolerate somebody else being happy. It's a terrible midah. And that's what he says over here. This beautiful soul, he's a nefesh beracha. He blesses others. He's happy for others. He's willing to help others. He's not jealous of others. So he himself, tedushan, this nefesh will be blessed, will prosper. Midah keneged midah. And one who is jealous, I think eventually we'll get to that pasuk, rekev atzamot kin'ah, the bones of one who's been jealous throughout his life will rot in the grave. You know, bones usually last for a while. But those who had kin'ah, they rot. And they don't only rot in the grave, even while one is alive. When one is jealous, he doesn't really have a life. He's always rotten, in a rotten mood. Another interpretation of this pasuk, that the soul of one who is kind or does acts of kindness to others, tedushan, through every ma'aseh tov that we do, every act of kindness that we do for others, we actually gain something from it. We become a better person. When the Torah says, Patoach tiftach et yadecha, anek ta'anik lo, that you should be kind and charitable, the Torah uses a double language. Patoach tiftach, anek ta'anik, naton titen. The more we do something, the easier it becomes for us, and it actually refines our character. Our own soul gains something from being kind to others. We're not only benefiting the poor, we're not only fulfilling a mitzvah, we're actually gaining something from this ourselves. Next pasuk, Monea bar yikevu le'om, ubracha lerosh mashbir. He who withholds grains, the grain, the people shall curse him, but blessing shall be upon the head of him who sells it. The simple meaning over here is talking about some individuals who have grain, they have food, people need it, and the reason why he's holding on to it is because he knows that the price will go up. He's waiting to sell it at the higher price. People, of course, will curse him, will not be happy with an individual like that, who has the ability to help at the time that is needed and holds it back. Monea bar yikevuhu le'om. People will curse an individual like that, who he's capable of helping and withholds that help at the time that is needed. It's also talking about people who can teach, people who can help others in any way possible and simply don't want to do it. They hold themselves back. People will curse them. But those who give others to drink will themselves have what to drink. Rabbis tell us on this second portion of the pasuk that whoever is in need of something and prays for another individual who needs the exact same thing, he will be answered first. Let's say somebody is still single and he prays for someone else who's single. Because he's thinking of another person before he's thinking about himself, Hashem will respond to him first. You're so kind as to think and pray for others, and you need the exact same thing, then you will be blessed first. I will answer your prayers first. All right, next pasuk. Shoher tov yevakesh ratzon v'doresh ra'at tevo'eno. He who diligently seeks good procures favor, but evil comes to him who searches for it. Shoher tov. Shoher tov means one who's always trying to look at the good side of everything. This could be to judge favorably. One has the ability to judge an individual, to accuse him or to criticize him, and he gives him the benefit of the doubt. He's always looking at the good side. Then mi'ashamayim, they will also judge him favorably. It's all midah keneged midah. However one treats others, however one who pursues the good in others, the mi'ashamayim, they will pursue the good in him. He's always looking at the good side. One has the ability to, give an example, to deal harshly with a bad neighbor or with somebody who has mistreated him. He has that ability to take revenge or to do something harsh, or he has the ability to do something different. As I'll tell you the story and you will understand. There's a story in the Gemara of a big rabbi who had terrible neighbors, and they gave him a very, very hard time. And his wife comes to him, why don't you curse them? Curse them. Your blessings come true, your curses for sure will come true. Why don't you just curse them, eliminate them? He says, I'd rather pray that they should do teshuvah. As the pasuk says, Yitammu hata'im min haaretz. The verse says that very soon all the sins will disappear from this world. It doesn't say sinners, it says the sins will disappear. In other words, hopefully B'ezrat Hashem soon, when Mashiach comes, there won't be a Yetzer Hara, so there won't be any more sinning. So instead of praying that the sinners should disappear, that the wicked should die, let's pray that they should do teshuvah. And in the end, those neighbors became good people. He prayed, he helped them, he looked after them, he was kind to them. That was a much better approach. So that's the meaning of Yishoher Tov Yevakesh Ratzon. One who always pursues the good finds favor. Finds favor in the eyes of Hashem, finds favor in the eyes of people. But V'doresh Ra'at Tebo'eno, he who pursues to do bad things, what he's pursuing to do unto others will Chas v'Shalom come unto him. Tell us another famous expression, Ma'asecha yikarvucha, Ma'asecha yirachakucha. One's deeds will make it so that he will get along with people will like him, and it's because of one's deed that yirachakucha, that they will create distance. In other words, a person ultimately creates his own enemies as a result of his actions. It is possible for one to behave in such a way that people will like him and say good things about him, and it's also just as easy for a person to do something that will create distance. Ma'asecha, it's your own deeds. It's not just one's mazal. My mazal, the people don't like me. That's not true. In the end, it's ma'asecha. It's one's deeds that either will cause others to befriend you or cause others to stay away from you. Poteach be'oshrohu yipol v'che'alet tzadikim yifrachu. He who trusts in his riches shall fall, but the righteous shall flourish like a green leaf. This pasuk is talking strictly about bitachon in Hashem, how one should have only confidence in Hashem and not in his wealth, not in his pension, not in social security. You can't trust these things. You don't know if they'll be around by the time you're ready to retire. Right? So what do? We do other things. We try to save money in some other way because we don't want to rely on that. It may not even be enough, even if it's there. The point here is, you can't rely on any money. Especially in Latin America, everybody knew it. At one point or another, they knew that they better have some savings in America or in Switzerland, because there was a devaluation every couple of years. And some people never learned. They had to learn it the hard way. They were saying, okay, this is just a one-time devaluation. But in Mexico, again, one after another, the devaluations came and people lost a lot of money. And there are a bunch of crooks there, and corrupt. And people lost money. But those who were smart, they had good mazal, that were blessed, they took out most of their money out. They just kept what they needed in pesos. You can't rely on your wealth. We can only rely on Hashem. He who relies on his wealth will fall. But like the leaves, the righteous will flourish. The tzaddikim who rely on Hashem will flourish. They have no reason to fear that they will fall when they have their faith in their trust in Hashem. Next pasuk, Ocher beto yinchal ruach ve'eved devilim lachacham lev. He who troubles his own house shall inherit the wind, and the fool shall be servant to the wise of heart. Okay, this is another pasuk that I would prefer to translate it with my own words. Here he says, he who troubles his own house. Ocher beto is much more than just to trouble. He who makes his house ugly. Ocher means that he completely destroys it. How does a person destroy his own house? There are several examples given here. One is by fostering arguments. Every day and night there's some argument between the husband and wife and with the kids. There's always arguments. And what he's saying over here, in the end, all of these arguments, yinhal ruach, all you will inherit and you will gain is wind. Nothing. Hawa. Right? Nothing. What's going to come out of all these arguments? And I've talked about this a lot when we're dealing with relations between husband and wife. They're always bickering and arguing, and after 12, 15 years they decide to go to a marriage counselor. All of those feelings that have been hurt, all of those wounds that have not healed, what is the marriage counselor going to do now? They've lost touch. They have no more love for each other. What could the marriage counselor do? How can you restore all the good feelings? All there are ill feelings. What they should have done is, after an argument, which happens once in a while, is make up. I'm sorry, let's forget about it. Let us, good night. But if you're allowed to all these bad feelings to accumulate, after a couple of years, all the good, and this happens, I see it with a lot of couples. It's very hard. They've lost trust in each other. They don't like each other. They're not interested anymore in making up. It has to be caught in the very early part of the relationship, in the very beginning. Otherwise, it accumulates and becomes hard. Ocher beto This is a way of destroying one's house, or bringing trouble into one's house. In the end, all you get is wind. In other words, nothing is gained from all this argument. The commentaries tell us that it's also talking about the one who is miser and stingy. Does anybody here know what the difference between a miser and a stingy man is? Kilai and kamsan in Hebrew. They appear to be the same or similar, but they're not. And a stingy person is usually stingy with others. He wants for himself, and he doesn't want to give to others. Typical, stingy. A kilai, a miser, is even for himself, he doesn't spend. I remember reading in the Guinness Book of World Records about a woman in England who was a multimillionaire, but she would go dressed in rags in the street selling soap. A miser, in other words, she didn't dress up, she didn't spend on herself. It's a sickness. A miser is a greater sickness than being stingy. But there are people like that who don't even spend on themselves. Now the problem is, oy vavoy, if somebody does not spend a little bit on his wife and on his kids, ocher beto, he's destroying his house. There are some people who want to save money and not give their kids a Jewish education, but they're going to buy themselves the latest car. One who saves money on education eventually will regret it, because the child may marry a non-Jew. If the child was not taught a profession, he may come to steal from others. And as the continuation of the pasuk says, what will happen to all the money that he has saved and not shared with his family? Yinhal ruach. The money will eventually disappear. He thinks he's going to take it to the grave. I heard recently a story, I don't know if it's true. There was a miser who says in his tzava'ah, in his testament, in his will, I want all my money buried with me. And he signed it with attorneys, and they had no choice. The kids were crazy, but they had no choice. And I think there was one son who came up with a great idea. Took all the money for himself and wrote his father a check. He buried the check with the father. He gave him his money. Let him try to collect. There are misers, and he says, Habal, yinhal ruach, all that money goes away. Nothing will remain from it. Spend it on your kids. Give it to your wife. Not everything she wants, of course, but spend. Be generous. What happens if you do not do that? The children may turn out to be servants by an intelligent man. In other words, by somebody who is more intelligent. These guys will be employed. Instead of being self-employed, instead of having their own business, they're going to be an eved.
How about the famous play of Molière, Molière?
Yeah. Ve'eved lachacham lev could also mean that the individual himself, who is a bazbezan, if he does not know how to lechalkel et kaspo, how to manage his money, he's just a big spender. In the end, he will also be an eved, evil lachacham lev. He will be a servant to the wise. Now, those who are fools will be servants to others, or he will cause that his children should be servants to others instead of leaving them an inheritance. So we're talking here about the miser, about the stingy man, and about the one who's a big spender, who does not manage his finances well. Either one of them, in the end, is a fool. Nothing will remain of the money. One who thinks he's going to save it for later. You have to save some money for later. We talked about that before. But you have to enjoy life normally too. You have to allow yourself according to one's level of blessing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has blessed him. There are certain things that you shouldn't deprive yourself. Hashem has given you a blessing, use it. I mean, there are limits. I mean, there are people who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in making a big bash, a wedding, and they really should not do that. $30,000 just on flowers, and that's nothing. Some of the weddings that they make today, and I don't want to publicly tell you which communities these people live in, but there are some that are known to just squander their money just to make an impression, and all this money for chaval. If they have the money, they're entitled to spend more. But even then, it should be with good taste, not just to throw it away. Even those who have it should be careful. They're entitled to invite more people. They're entitled to have 17-course meal. They're entitled, to have perhaps limousines bring everyone. I've heard all sorts of, so that's fine, but it has to be with taste. Sometimes people just squander. But what I'm talking about is the people who do not have the money, and they borrow the money just to impress people. That's for sure not right. You have to be careful with your money. Another individual that we left out over here that is also included is the lazy individual who does not want to work. All the money that he may have accumulated or that he may have inherited will be lost too. So the lazy man loses out as well. Yeah, we've covered that before. Okay, we've come to the last pasuk of this chapter. Actually, we have two pasukim, yeah. Pri tzadik etz chaim velokach nefashot chacham. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he who wins souls is wise. A tzaddik sets up a good investment. It's a tree of life. All that he does has continuity, is eternal. The things that a tzaddik does are things that have value. It's not just for this world. His investment is an enduring investment. It's therefore called etz chaim. The fruit of the tzaddik, the maasim of the tzaddik, is a tree of life. Another idea of a tree of life is the children that he raises. By investing in them, by giving over to them the Torah and the mitzvot, the tradition, they are his continuity. And as the rabbis tell us, whoever leaves this world but has left behind a good child, he continues to live. He has not died, because there's a part of him that's still around. But he who takes or wins souls is wise. Here we're talking about those who bring others b'tshuva, those who bring others closer to the Torah. They're acquiring souls. He is a true wise man. Spending time, making the effort to bring souls. That is actually one of the biggest mitzvot in our generation, when there's so much assimilation and so many Jews who are so distant. Whoever has any influence to bring them, it's one of the most powerful mitzvot. And there's a tremendous amount of reward for such a mitzvah. Hen tzaddik ba'aretz yishulam af ki rasha v'choteh. Behold, if the righteous is rewarded on earth, how much more the wicked and the sinner. What does that mean? This is a very important pasuk, this last pasuk. Don't feel bad or don't be jealous of reshaim, of those who are wicked and sinners who are succeeding or who are prosperous. And look at the tzaddik and feel bad that he's suffering. If the tzaddik is suffering, then the more so the rasha will suffer. If the tzaddik is getting what is due to him in this world, Hashem is sending him a kapara, don't lose hope. If he's getting it, then the more so the rasha. And it also works the other way around. If the rasha is doing so well, alachat kama v'kama, the more so that the tzaddik in the afterlife will receive all the reward that is coming to him. That's the proper way to look at it. Is not to get lost, in other words, in this confusion. Why tzaddik veralo, rasha v'tovlo? Why is the righteous man doing so not good, struggling, and the one who is wicked is doing so well? And one sees this from time to time, and there are answers to this, and we don't always have the answer, but we have the emunah and the faith in Hashem that there is a heshbon. Hashem knows what to give to who to give. And if a rasha can do so well and have such a good life, can you imagine the reward that will be coming to the tzaddik? It may not come now, it may come later, and even if it does not come in this life, it will come in the afterlife. This is a very important part of our emunah, that many people unfortunately have gotten the wrong ideas, that you can only make it if you're dishonest. You can only make it if you work on Shabbat. You can only make it if you do the wrong things. Chas v'shalom. And just because the tzaddikim don't appear to be successful, one should not be misled by that. First of all, there are many tzaddikim who are doing very, very well. There are many religious Jews who are richer than non-religious Jews. There are all types. There are many reshaim who are very poor too. There's all kinds. But people get lost in all this confusion. That is why Mishlei reminds us, if this is what a rasha receives, then the more so, you can imagine what the reward of the tzaddik will be. Okay, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll continue next week.
Rabbi Kin, how does it fit with the idea that if you're poor, it's a form of death? Both if you're poor and suffering, how does that...
If you're poor, poverty is a form of death, meaning that it's compared to death. It's a very hard type of suffering. But it's always a kapara, it's always an atonement, and it could be as a result of one's mazal, due to a previous reincarnation. It is a very hard life for one to be poor. Just like it is hard for one to be blind and for one to have no children. The rabbis compare it to death because it's very, very hard.
So someone could be a tzaddik,
Someone could be a tzaddik
have all of this.
and nevertheless be struggling because in some way it's for his good. In some way it's for his benefit, even though it's very difficult. And poverty is one of the most difficult challenges. But nevertheless, he is made of himself a tzaddik. The poverty came to him when he was just being born into that mazal, before he decided what to make of himself 20 years later. One does not necessarily affect the other. One's ma'asim are his own free will. It does not mean that his mazal will change as a result of him becoming a righteous man. One can have a great mazal and he chose at the age 35 to become rasha. It doesn't mean that Hashem will take away his good mazal. Mazal many times stays with one for the rest of his life. Many times one's mazal changes only because we have a special relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we are above the mazal and we can change our bad mazal through teshuvah, through tefillah, and through tzedakah.